Okay, so where we left off was these two questions right here. I hope that you wrote your responses down in the discussion. And we're going to actually start with the first one and talking about that one. Based on the definition of what it means to colonize, why would a country want to colonize? So, here are the main reasons why European countries wanted to colonize. I call them, and other historians call them, push and pull factors. What is pushing them out of Europe and what is pulling them into the New World? So, the first phrase should look very familiar to you. Hopefully, you did your Spanish colonization work. But this phrase is attributed to Spanish colonization, but can be applied to a bunch of European countries as well. The phrase, of course, is very famous. It's God, gold, and glory. So, Spain, for example, wanted to colonize the New World to spread Catholicism. They also wanted to colonize the New World in search of gold or other treasures. And lastly, they wanted glory. They wanted to be powerful. So other European countries are going to follow this kind of same suit. They may want to take over countries, colonize countries, because they want to spread their religion. They want to find treasures. They want to find riches, resources. Spain found gold. Other countries were not as successful, but they want to find something that will make them rich. And then lastly, I think this is the biggest one. European countries really want to colonize other lands in order to make themselves more powerful. They want to be top dog. They want to be top country. They want to be the one with the most influence around the world. So right here, second bullet point is more resources and power. Kind of already talked about that in the 3 Gs. But look at the third bullet point here. It's not just having more of what you already have. It's also about searching for resources that are different than what you already have in Europe. So something enticing about the New World is that this is a completely different land that the people have never been to before, and it has different environments. And the Native Americans there are growing different things that they either just didn't know existed, they didn't know they could grow it, or they just have never seen it before. It can't grow in Europe. And so they're super excited that as they take over these new lands, they get to be exposed to these different resources that they never knew existed. Lastly, right here, some people like to colonize land just to create this new opportunity, this new experience. Big countries are colonizing this land to expand their country, but some people are going to want to leave to kind of create a new branch of it, if that makes sense. I'll explain it a little bit more later. Right here it says free of some issues in Europe. Some people are going to want to be a part of this colonization trend because they're trying to get rid of or escape things that are happening in Europe. And I'm specifically referring to religious issues here. You'll hear me talk about it a lot more with English colonization. They want to take over the New World because they're trying to get away from persecution. That their religion is not being accepted in England, so they would like to come to the New World and expand there. Now, at the bottom, I just put a quick note of why colonization is happening. You may be wondering, why did it happen when it happened? Why is the New World, why was it like hidden to the Old World? Well, they just physically couldn't travel that far on the ocean. They didn't have the technology, they didn't have the ships. And so right here, I just made a little note that advances in compasses and types of ships, they've made it possible that people like Christopher Columbus and other people can travel that far and get to the New World finally. Okay, this picture right here is super famous. I hope that you've seen it before. It's named after Christopher Columbus for quote unquote discovering the New World. But it's more of than just him. It is a phenomenon that's going to happen for the next hundreds of years. It's called the Columbian Exchange. Now, as the Europeans from the Old World, as they are colonizing the New World, they are bringing stuff with them, right here, and they are taking stuff from North America and they're taking it back to Europe. So you can see this exchange of things being brought into the New World and things being brought into the Old World. You don't have to memorize this list, but it is important to know maybe some examples of things that are coming into the New World for the first time and things that are going to the Old World for the first time. So I would ask you to please pause this video and just look at this exchange. Look at this picture. What are some things that jump out to you? What are two really good things, good items that are being exchanged? What are maybe some two negative items being exchanged? So pause this video and analyze it for a moment. When looking at this picture, I want you to note something about colonization, meaning who is benefiting in this exchange? Who is getting more benefits in this exchange? Both sides are getting stuff, but who is getting more good stuff? It should be Europe. Okay? Europe is getting more benefits from this exchange, and that should make sense to you because Europe is the one colonizing. And if they are the country of power, they would not colonize a new land that was going to hurt them. They are colonizing the New World so that they get stronger and better. So, of course, in this exchange, some good stuff is going to the New World, of course. Like, I love grapes. I love coffee. I love peaches. Like, that's good stuff that is going into the New World. But nothing bad is going into Europe. And that, of course, makes sense with colonization. You might think tobacco is bad. And of course, like for some people it is, but tobacco is going to make them a lot of money in Europe. So it's actually a really, really good commodity, good item to sell. Okay. Two positives. You probably picked out some items that maybe you like. Maybe you think it was a good thing that meat, more livestock was coming over. Maybe you love tomatoes. Maybe you love salsa. I don't know. Maybe you love turkeys. Maybe you love sweet potatoes. There's a lot of really good things being exchanged both sides. A lot of fruits and veggies going into Europe. This is actually kind of random, but because of these items coming in, fruits and vegetables, European diets are actually going to get better. People are going to be healthier and live longer because of these healthier items coming in to Europe. So kind of fun fact over there. But a negative, obviously, I hope you see the giant skull and crossbones right here. That's one of the biggest negatives coming into the New World, one of the biggest negatives of the Columbian Exchange. Keep in mind, these diseases already existed in Europe, so they're not going to be a huge negative thing for Europeans. But for the Native Americans that are being taken over and inhabited and interacting with the colonizers, these diseases are going to severely affect them. Native Americans' immune systems are used to being in their environment around people like them with similar diseases and immune systems as them. So with colonization, look at this list. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be really, really detrimental to their health, and it's going to cause death for a lot of people. And so these diseases coming into the New World from colonization is probably the number one most negative thing about this exchange. Another negative is actually the livestock right here. You might be confused why that's a negative. For my meat lovers out there, maybe you're cool with the meat coming in. But these new animals are going to actually compete with the animals that are already in the New World. Compete in what they kind of eat as well, if that makes sense. So if some cattle eats grass and if deer eat grass, then that's going to be a competition there. And it's going to kind of mess up the environment and the ecosystem that was already in place in the New World. Horses are going to be a pro and a con, which we'll talk about later. But Native Americans, when they were hunting their animals, when they were hunting their prey, they would have to run, and they had to shoot, and they had to use their weapons. But horses help them hunt, but also maybe make them overhunt, and makes just the whole system, again, in the New World, kind of just go out of whack. They're not used to this kind of situation. So there are benefits happening on both sides, but those are just some notable things to understand about the Columbian Exchange, things being taken into the New World and into the Old World as well. Okay, I wanted to make sure I put this slide on here. You can look at it yourself. I just wanted to make sure I don't forget these things. So I talked about overhunting, that, yeah, European weapons are going to come in and they'll give them to the Native Americans, even a little bit, not a lot, but there'll be this competition over game of things to eat. So you'll see that. Look at this one right here. This is a very common one, but very common one for colonization. So commodification is when you turn something into a commodity. A commodity is an item that you intend to sell for money. So what I mean here is that in the Columbian Exchange, European colonizers are going to find some stuff in the New World, and they're going to take that item and they're going to say, oh, I can sell this for money. For example, tobacco. Tobacco was used in ritual ceremonies. Tobacco was used in a bunch of different ways in Native culture. But when Europeans found out about it, they're like, I'm going to take this tobacco and sell it and make a lot of money off of it. Look at the example right here. Inca tribal people drank a certain corn beer for ritual reasons only. So they did not drink this like to get drunk. They didn't drink this to celebrate. They are doing it only for some sort of Native American ritual. But when the Spanish saw it, they sold it for money. So they turned this sacred item, something that they used for their religion, and they turned it into something that they can make money off of. Okay, so it's just one of the effects of the Columbian Exchange, and it's also going to highlight a big major theme we'll talk about later, and we've already kind of talked about, is Native American culture versus colonizer culture, and how this is going to mix and how this is going to clash. There's going to be a lot of things. Speaking of that, look at the third point. When the colonizers come, they have this idea of private property, that I'm on this land, land is mine, and it's not yours. That is countercultural to Native American culture, where they see as the land as sacred, as part of their religion, and it is something to be shared amongst one another. I talked about this one right here, about messing up ecosystems, talked about diseases, talked about better diets, and some plants in the New World were used as medicinal purposes, so for medicine, and that was actually a huge positive benefit for people in the New Old World getting exposed to these new medicines that were happening. Okay, so a key idea here, though, this idea of colonization in general, I'll just leave it on this. A lot of it is just to make money. Again, you're not going to colonize a land if you're not going to get any benefit from it. So God, gold, and glory. A lot of countries won't just colonize land just for the God portion, to be honest with you. They're really colonizing this land for the other two reasons: for gold, or something that will make them money, and for glory. So I want to introduce this term now, but I will talk about it a lot more later. Mercantilism. It's an economic system to increase a nation's wealth by government regulation of all the nation's commercial interests. What I mean is that, let me go back here. As Europe finds these items, they want to make money off of them. So they're going to control where these items go, how much these items cost, the production of these items, because they want to make the most money. So that's mercantilism, and we'll talk about it a lot more later, but I wanted to introduce it pretty early because it's super vital for colonization. Okay? So we're in our last 3 slides. I just wanted to end off with Spanish colonization was the first one to kick off this whole trend. They were the first ones there. They were the first powerful country to start inhabiting the New World, taking over Native Americans, all that kind of stuff. But once they became successful, once they started finding these items, once they started finding gold, once people were living there and interacting and succeeding, other countries took notice. English are going to take a long time to join this colonization trend, and I'll talk about that more later. But I do want to end off just briefly talking about French colonization. Okay, I simplified it to one slide, and we can talk about this more if you have any questions. But French colonization is super brief, but I kind of simplified it to fur and friends. Okay, so French colonization, fur and friends. I'm trying to keep the letter F in here as some sort of memorization assistance. French colonization is going to be taking place kind of in the northern part of North America, kind of near Canada area, but also in modern day United States of America. Their big thing is fur trade. So they are primarily colonizing, not in the intention of staying in North America or planting cities or towns or governments. They are just there to get fur and to sell it and to make money. So again, modern day New York, Canada area. They are just setting up areas where they are going to sell this fur, to find this fur, to sell it, and to make money. That's it. Now, what's interesting is because they're only in this for the fur and to make that money, they actually are going to become a little bit more friendly with Native Americans. They're not the best people in the world, but when compared to Spanish and English colonization, the French have really good relationships with the native people. They made some alliances with different tribes, as you can see here. They need help with finding these animals and finding the fur. They're not just going to kill the Native Americans who could help them make money. So again, they're not here to live. They're not here to conquer. They're here to get this fur, to make that money, and to leave, if that makes sense. One of their leaders even agreed to fight with a Native American tribe to fight another Native American tribe. So his alliance is with the Hurons and the Algonquins. And these French soldiers are going to fight against the Iroquois. So they're like supporting their Native American friends, which kind of is so not heard of when you talk about Spanish or English colonization. So this is a very unique thing to just French colonization. Okay. So this picture right here, if we want to analyze photos, if you see old photos like this, if I didn't tell you anything about it and tried to analyze what the heck was going on here, I actually want you to notice that this is French colonization. We see Native Americans traditionally dressed, traditionally drawn as naked. Sometimes they'd be wearing clothing, but sometimes they wouldn't, and that would be part of their culture. But in this picture, you see something peculiar. This part of the picture, people dressed like soldiers killing Native Americans, that's not uncommon. You'll see that a lot. But this part of the picture is what signifies that this is French colonization. We have these two people that look like, or these three people that look like European colonizers, and they're French, fighting with a Native American tribe against another Native American tribe. So again, it shows that friendship between French colonization and Native Americans fighting against another tribe. So again, the way to remember French colonization is fur and friends. And then, in our next video, we will be talking more about English colonization. But for Unit 1, it's Spanish, French, and how they are interacting with the Native Americans. Okay, so we'll talk more in a minute.